St. John's Storytelling. I'm so delighted to be here and to see all of our audience members this evening. So welcome to everybody in the room, and welcome to our online audience because this event is being live streamed. All the people out there in Facebook land or the cloud or wherever it is they are, welcome to everybody. We are so delighted that you are all joining us this evening. This is our first time at the Cox and Palmer Second Space for St. John's Storytelling Festival. So it's all new for us, but so far it's been great. The LSPU staff have been awesome and so helpful, and just really working with us. So thank you to them for that. Anybody in the room tonight, please take out your electronic brain that's in your pocket if you have one and put it on silent or turn it off. Because we don't want any interruptions of our beautiful storytelling that's going to happen here this evening. So some housekeeping items, emergency exits if you go through this door and around the corner to your right. There's an emergency exit if you go through this door and around the corner to your left. There's another emergency exit. Bathrooms are out here. Ladies is to the right, and gentlemen, but not to the left. And gentlemen is to the right.
Gender neutral.
And they're gender neutral. I didn't take that in. Sorry about that, but they're gender neutral. And we have a 15-minute break about halfway through. We're going to have some nibbles, and you can refresh your drink because the bar is now closed now that we're storytelling. Before we actually begin our evening, I'm going to ask Amelia Reimer to come and share with us a land acknowledgement for our festival, please, Amelia.
Karen. Hi, my name is Amelia Reimer, and I'm a proud Métis woman. It's my honor to be asked to give the land acknowledgement this evening, and I do need my cheat notes. It's important to acknowledge the lands and waters upon which we gather today. I'm proud to acknowledge and respect Indigenous people as the traditional custodians of these lands and waters, especially that to specific lands and waters. We acknowledge that the land upon which we meet today is unceded and unsurrendered Mi'kmaq and Beothuk territory. We further recognize that this has always been a place of teaching and learning. The Beothuk as a distinct people, society, and cultural legacy has been lost. Let us keep this loss in mind as we look toward the future, a future where there's room for all of us and an environment for Indigenous peoples and respective cultures to grow and flourish. We acknowledge the Indigenous communities of Newfoundland and Labrador that remain with us today. The Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatuavut, the Innu of Nitassinan, and the Mi'kmaq nations of both Mi'abegeg and Qalipu. Newfoundland and Labrador has a unique history of Indigenous recognition within Canada. Upon confederation with Canada in 1949, Ottawa was informed that there were no Indigenous peoples of Newfoundland and Labrador. Today, we look back on this statement with disbelief at this gross misrepresentation. Due to this misrepresentation, however, Indigenous peoples of Newfoundland and Labrador have had to fight very hard in the eyes of the government for recognition and continue that fight to this day. As we see today with both Qalipu Mi'kmaq and Nunatuavut communities, official recognition of Indigenous background and identity does not come easy. I wish to pay respect to all elders, past, present, and emerging, and to the ancestors. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of our Indigenous brothers and sisters and what they have taught us and continue to teach us. We acknowledge the important role Indigenous people continue to play within Newfoundland and Labrador. I also extend a special welcome to the Indigenous people in joining us today. May each and every one of you attending this festival embrace the Mi'kmaq phrase, Emsid Nogama. That means all my relations, or more literally, we are all related. Every single one of us, the human race, Emsid Nogama. Nakomik, Janiskomitten, Walaleo, thank you.
Thank you, Amelia, for that beautiful land acknowledgement. We always like to acknowledge at St. John's Storytelling, especially at our festival, that the Indigenous peoples were the first storytellers of this place where we now call home. Okay, so we're having a really busy year again this year, and we're so lucky to have so many partners and friends that we work with to help us put this festival together. I always say the festival is like putting together a puzzle, but you have a box with nothing on the top to help you. You just put it together, and it looks beautiful at the end, but you never know what it's going to look like until it's all done. So this year we have partnered with the Newfoundland and Labrador Public Libraries, the Ship Pub, the Folk Arts Society, the Ruins and Cupis Legacy Centre. PhoneMed is a local company, and they are paying for the snacks and the goodies that we'll share during our break. And thanks to CEO Charlene Brophy for their generosity. Perfect Day designed our posters and our pamphlet. And the staff at the LSPU Hall here, they've been great, especially because this is our first time being here. Because we're a registered not-for-profit, most of our work is done by volunteers. And without this really dedicated team of people, we wouldn't be able to do anything. So I'd like to acknowledge the members of our board. Please stand if you're in the room. Harry Ingram, Janine Walsh, Randy Crane, Ken Parsons, Nora Constantine, Helena Ulume, and Susan Oak-Cumby. Thank you, you guys. And in addition to this, we have 2 programming committee members who are not on the board, and those are Dave Padden and Gary Green. Catherine Wright, our past president, has put together our school storytelling for this festival as a volunteer, and thank you, Catherine, for that. And of course, our fantabulous, extraordinary volunteer who's at almost everything we do, Arlene Churchill, who's in the back of the room. Thank you, Arlene. And our administrator, Elaine Pond, who is here too. And Elaine is the beating heart of our storytelling community. Thank you, Elaine, for all you do. You are amazing. Now, on with the show. So I'm going to welcome special guests tonight. Eleanor Fury, who's Hubert's wife. And Eleanor is accompanied by family members, David, Paul, Edward, and Suzette. Would you all please stand so everybody can know who you are? Thank you for coming tonight, and I think it's going to be a really special night. We're just so looking forward to this wonderful celebration of Hubert and his place in our storytelling community. I recently just reread this book, which is Hubert's, as the old folks would say. And it really brought back his storytelling, his wit, his charm, and just, you know, his just sense of humor and how he would frame a story and tell a story. And I was listening to David tonight talk about one of his pieces, and he said, I was reading it and I was trying to, you know, get to put it to memory. And he said, you know, I wouldn't have written it that way, but that's the way that he wrote it. And I thought, yeah, that's true, isn't it? That's the way Hubert would write it. So true. And I really treasure this book. It's in my personal library. So we have a group tonight who knew Hubert very well and performed with him many, many times. And that's the other members of Stage to Stage, Dave Padden, Harry Ingram, and Dave Penny. And also the brilliant and talented Karen Ennis, a great friend and admirer of Hubert's work. And I believe there might be a couple of surprises also for us here tonight that I shall not get into at the moment. So to start off our official proceedings for the evening, I'm going to welcome someone whose name is synonymous with Newfoundland recitations these days, whether it's the Christmas tour or, you know, somebody taking the 12 land and going to Mars or somewhere like that. And that's my friend, Dave Padden. Come on up, Dave, and get us started.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I noted you said that Elaine was the beating heart of the organization. occasionally there's someone provides a bit of a defibrillation to that heart. And I think I might have done that yesterday. Sorry about that, Elaine.
That's okay, you're forgiven.
I'm forgiven. Very good. Bit of a misunderstanding. All good. Yeah, we're here to celebrate the Oracle of Harbour, Maine, which is what we call Hubert Fury. And I don't know who put the name on him.
Roger, I think.
It was Roger, was it? Okay.
Sounds like something you'd say.
Well, I thought you were going to tell me it was me.
Was your
Yeah, it
name?
must be Roger.
No, it was you.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, he was a bit of an oracle to us. We looked towards him for, I don't know, sort of guidance, you might say, I suppose, in a way. When I think about Hubert, I think about someone who kept the torch burning. Because, you know, a culture doesn't just survive with nobody working away at making it survive. People like Hubert and people like Andy Jones and a few others, you all know who they are. They keep the things going, and they carry the torch for a while, so it's still there when a bunch of new people come along and start doing something. In this case, it was us with recitations. It all just happened to us kind of simultaneously, don't really know how. But then we found this guy who'd been doing them for years and was familiar with them. And we all learned a bit from him. So I think the culture kind of cycles through time, and it picked us up, and we're really glad it did. And it's difficult sometimes. You know, it gets overwhelmed by other influences. One time it was American country and Western music, and now it's K-pop, which I still don't really know what that is. But, you know, the young generation, they love that stuff. Can't blame them. And it was Creedence Clearwater Revival for me. But one day, this will all be here for them when they get interested again. So it carries on. And people like Hubert are instrumental in that. So I was going to start off with something that I think Hubert liked this one. He kind of got a chuckle out of it because he's a cards player too, right, Eleanor? Yeah. And when I say cards, of course, I mean 120s, right? You know? So, I mean, it's like fish, right? There's salmon, there's trout, there's fish. That's codfish. There's crazy eights, there's poker, there's cards, 120s. Anyway, I got in a big game of 120s at a time when I shouldn't really have been at it. I was fairly new to it. And I've been doing this for therapy ever since. It happened out in a little outport, which I won't name to protect me from the guilty. And it was pretty traumatizing. They were all experts, and I was not. And I should say at the same time, it was moose hunting season was on, you see. And moose hunting out around that way consists mostly of a couple of fellows going along in a pickup at about 15 miles an hour looking in like that, you know, trying to get one in the ditch, hopefully. So there's a few factors to consider, and I'll give it a try here now. In a minute. I hope it's nothing important.
Hope it is. Those teenagers with their phones.
That's
Never
it,
put 'em down.
yeah. It's not the young people, it's people my age.
We don't want them to turn them off.
Okay. All right, enough of that. Okay, this is just called the card game. Now, I'd like to relate to you the story of Dave, kind of a weekend bayman who used to be brave. He'd tackle a bouncer, he'd wrestle a bear, he'd sail a pump through a storm with a latte held near. He climbed Everest a few times by various routes, without any oxygen, and once without boots. But then came the card game in Blasty Cove West. Now Dave's not so brave. Dave is not at his best. It was a few years ago on a fine fallish day, David bought an old house out around the bay. He was looking for escape from the office and mall, a place to slow down and get away from it all. He dropped in for groceries at Otto's Convenience, and after learning that Otto did not sell incense, Dave spied a notice stuck onto the wall. Card game on Saturday at the RC Church Hall. Well, that sounds like fun, Dave said to Otto, but Otto was busy with a ticket for the lotto. And so the fates were decided on the future ensuing events that would lead to Dave's final undoing. Now, in an effort to be neighborly, meet the locals and all, Dave took Carl's taxi that night to the hall. Carl himself was the driver. He had 3 other guests. They were all wearing coveralls and blaze orange vests. Carl said, I hope you don't mind a fairly slow run. And he gave Dave some bullets, a vest, and a gun. Now keep your eyes peeled, said a lady named Seuss. It's the last day for hunting, and Carl got an our moose. As they crept along the highway, all eyes were skinned. No, I'm a hunter, thought Dave, and he grinned. There's one, he said, and he felt his blood pump. Go on, boy, said Seuss. Sure, that's only a stump. Arriving at the hall, Dave's nickname was Stump. It could have been Pony or Wood Horse or Lump. He swaggered from the van for all hands to see, reluctantly handing back Carl's .303. Now, it was a nice friendly group that sat round Dave's table, to which he was assigned by a woman named Mabel, two sisters named Lee, Madonna, and Blanche, and a man named Cy Cox, originally from Branch. Cy had one eye, a patch on the other, and he joked that he'd lost one playing cards with his mother. Dave laughed at the joke, told a joke of his own. He felt like one of the crowd, just like he was home. Start the game, Mabel ordered in a tone quite severe. Brr, said Dave, is it getting colder in here? And then he noticed the other three staring at him like wolves at a lamb, all hungry and grim. Oh, my, thought Dave as the cards were dealt out. This crowd is serious about cards, just no doubt. He drew Blanche as a partner, and her frown said it all. Don't fool up, you Stunders Townie, that's all. Blanche dealt the cards first and put 3 in the kit. Supposed to be 4, said Dave, isn't it? Huh, said Madonna with a bone-chilling frown. I suppose that's the way that you plays it in town. Dave laughed weakly, and he squirmed in his seat. He had sweat on his brow, and he was red as a beet. He played his cards badly as Blanche's eyes drilled. Howden, she said, you got the hearse and cart killed. Well, as the next hand was dealt, Dave's cards were not bad. Ace of hearts, jack, and 2 of spades is what he had. Trusting to his partner, trying not to get freaked, Dave made up his mind. I'll go 20. He squeaked. I think I'll pass, said Cy with a hint of a smile. Pass, said Blanche. She was way more hostile. Madonna then took what seemed like a fit. 30 for 60, she screeched. And kick. Well, just at that moment, Dave felt his nerve crack. He put out his ace when he should have played his jack. Blanche glared across the table with death in her eyes, and they were down 60, and Cy said, no, boys. Well, Dave's head was spinning, and he let out a groan as he felt himself enter his own twilight zone. For he'd seen something else that seemed a bit strange. The other 3 players were starting to change. They were all getting bigger as he looked on in dread. Cy's eye had moved to the middle of his head. Blanche was a cackling old witch, for God's sakes. Madonna's hairdo wasn't knowing only snakes. Your deal, Townie, Cy roared across the table. Dave tried his best, but he just wasn't able. Blanche smiled wickedly with half her teeth missing. Madonna just stared, her hair slithering and hissing. Well, that's when Dave lost and ran screaming from the hall. Wouldn't have said Blanche. What's with Townie at all? Clappy bag, said Madonna. He's not right in the head. Gone for a Starbucks, I dare say, so I said. Well, it was just getting duckish. Not long till night, Carl's taxi was crawling along the road round the bite. All eyes were scanning for a late season moose. I think I hear screaming, said the lady named Seuss. With that, they beheld a most curious sight. A man passing on the left and screaming in fright. Save me, he wailed, from that unholy 3, Medusa, the Cyclops, and the screaming Banshee. Well, you might think things couldn't get stranger than that. You'll either change your mind shortly or I'll eat my head. Just as Carl said, he got a screw loose. Dave ran smack into a great big bull moose. Well, the moose got a fright and dropped dead in its tracks with our unconscious hero draped across its rags. Carl said he might be a townie, but no more will I rag him because I got me moose boy, so come on now, let's tag him. Not long after that, Dave gave up his spot for a spot back in town on a tiny town lot. He feels much safer, but he still has his fears. And he goes to the overpass and stands there and stares. That's it. And I can still see those ladies in. I won't even name it. Staring at me. after I played the wrong card. Okay, we're gonna get right into the order here, and I'm really pleased to introduce now someone who doesn't need any introduction, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Karen Ennis is here. She's a member of the Juno Award-winning trio, the Ennis Sisters, hailing from St. John's. They've been captivating audiences worldwide for over 25 years with their seamless harmonies and compelling songwriting. Flavored by Celtic and traditional Newfoundland influences, their music offers a broad mix of original songs as well as uniquely interpreted tunes and ballads. Karen's been performing recitations as part of the Sisters stage show for over a decade, and she does Hubert stuff. So it's just great. So come on up, Karen.
Thank you, Dave. It was a beautiful recitation. I have known Hubert probably since 2010. And he asked me to come in and perform on his first CD. And I was actually playing the role of Matilda, who had a terrible voice. So it was great to do that because I have a beautiful voice. But no, it was really fun to channel that. But Hubert, we became friends over the years, and we would chat often about recitations, and he would come to our home, and he would write recitations for us. And I've performed them, I'd say, for 12 years now. I've been performing Hubert's recitations. And this was the first one that I learned belonged to Hubert. And now rumor has it, this is a recitation about Hubert. Men especially, as they get older, they don't realize that they can't do the same things that they once could. And they often find that out the hard way. So, and if you're laughing, it's probably you. Like, you probably have had this happen to you. But this was such a wonderful recitation to learn, and I'm going to do it now. It's called When We Were Young. There comes a time in a man's short life when he thinks that he's still young. He can't accept that his strength is weak or the songs he sang are sung. Oh, his eye can follow the pretty maid as she walks the sun-drenched deck. But there's danger now if she moves too quick, that he'll wrench his aging neck. And such was the case of Henry Horn, whose years were slipping on. He wanted to prove his youth once more before those years were gone. So on that night at the parish hall, he was given a noble chance. When the accordion struck a polka tune, the fastest kind of dance. Now, he didn't ask his lovely wife, whose hip that night was sore. So he searched around the crowded room till his gaze stopped at the door. The door. His eye fell on blonde Mary Jane, a woman young and strong, just like myself if you need a visual. Thank you. And she could dance the feet off any man who dared to come along. Now, in his mind, he saw the crowd in awe as they twirled around the floor, and the world would see the spark still there, and that his life was not yet over. Now, his wife was a woman who loved him deep, but still a woman wise, that she let him blunder on ahead should come as no surprise. By all means, Henry, go have a dance, she said with a knowing smile, but cautioned, now the polka's fast, and you know it's been a while. Undeterred, he hit the floor with Mary Jane in tow, and so caught up, he shouted out, the music's too darn slow. The accordion player heard the call, and his face spread with a grin, and he squeezed that box with all his might to make those dancers spin. The crowd around became a blur as Henry twirled and spun, and his spirit soared in ecstasy as he's returned to youthful fun. Everything's going great. But as the dance reached fever pitch, his heart began to pound, and his breath became those shortened gasps with that eerie sound. And with a dizzy ringing in his ear, he began to lurch and reel. And he would have fallen on his face, but was gripped in arms of steel. For arms of steel had Mary Jane and a matching pair of legs, as you can see from your example. Thank you. Poor Henry Horn, he was far outclassed with his aging picket pegs. She lifted him up and set him down and spun him like a top, while Henry clung to dearest life for fear she'd sudden stop. Now one time she took him off his feet right off the heaving floor, and he would have gone into orbit then, except they closed the door. Now when the dance was over, she led him back to the chair by his smiling wife. His heaving chest and rasping frame, the signs of a later life. And he sat in the chair and thought it through as the blood rushed to his head, thinking how lovely it would be right now to be in a nice warm bed. And although the women weren't in cahoots, he'll swear till his dying day that Mary Jane did his wife a turn, because she winked as she walked away. He still goes to the dances round every chance he gets, but that youthful dream he holds no more. In the now his mind is set. He moves to tunes that are nice and slow, the kind that cause no pain, because he learned his lesson that sorry night in the polka with Mary Jane.
I'm supposing Hubert was probably about my age when you wrote that. You know, 45 or so. Our next performer is well known to all of you, I think pretty well all of you. He's one of their stage-to-stage troupe. He's Harry Ingram. He was born and raised in Arnold's Cove, the Central Bay, or as Ray Guy would call it, that far greater bay. Oh, for sure. Foggiest place around only. Recitations have always been a core element of Harry's upbringing, which he now performs in various venues. He's known to appear alongside Dave Padden, that feller, Dave Penny, and, well, was Hubert Fury as part of the popular stage-to-stage group. He's also part of the comedy recitation duo, The Lawyer's Bench Show, with Ken Parsons. He writes his own original material. However, he also enjoys keeping alive the works of such greats as Leo O'Brien, John Joe English, and others. Quoted, text hidden. Okay. Anyway, Harry, come on up. Oh, wait, I didn't listen all right.
I have no idea what that last part was. But anyway, here I am. I'm a man that I figure I don't make many mistakes in life, but I wore a sweater. Anyway, I guess I'll have to deal with that now. Okay, so Hubert has certainly meant a lot to me right from the first time I began performing, because it was down at the Crow's Nest that we done the song circle. Many times Hubert would be there, I'd be there. It's where we kind of started performing in public like that. And the man just meant so much to me, telling me, giving me little bits of advice here and there. I don't, this next piece I'm doing for a reason. It's the first time I ever performed it on stage. It was with the stage-to-stage group. And just about after every performance, I asked Hubert, what did you think, Hubert? Did I do okay? Hubert always said, yes, Mike, good stuff. Well, this particular recitation that I done, he said, Harry, because it's the first time I done it, so I done my best to get through it as fast as I could. So the next line was coming to me. And he said, Harry, you're not in any race. This is not a race. Treat it like a marathon. Let it soak in. And I think about that every time I perform this piece. And if I'm too fast, please feel free to let me know at the end. It's called the Yankee Privateer. Well, it was in the year 1793. The Yankee privateers was raiding the coast of Newfoundland, robbing the Newfoundlanders of their codfish, which was their only means of livelihood. And as the saying used to go, then they used to use the Newfoundlanders' heads for cannonballs. Now, William Kelly, he be the principal man there was in our place at that time, he called a meeting in his fish store to see what could be done, because the population was on the hands of starving. Well, he made a thundered and fine speech, and he offered his old hooker up to any 6 men that could take her, go up to St. John's and bring down a load of provisions. Well, up speaks one, I'll go. Yes, says another, I'll go. And I says, look at here now, boys, you can't all go. So we picked out 6 of the strappest young men there was a salmon here at that time, and me being youngest of them all, they selected me for skipper. And we then fitted up William Kelly's old hooker for that trip up to St. John's. Well, we arrived at St. John's and tied up at St. John's wharf okay, and we then loaded pork, beef, molasses and flour, and likewise sir, a punch and a rum which we placed on the quarter. Now, owing to the wind being ahead, we never put her out, but the next day, the wind being fair, we let her go. Well, we had a thundered fine time going down along the shore till Darby Doolan, who appeared as lookout on the forward deck, well, he said he spied a sail which appeared to be a barrack about 100 tons or more. And as he bore down on us, we had anyone to speak to us. And seeing as he was flying the custom house flag, we didn't think it any harm. But when he rounded our quarter, down come the custom house flag from his main top, and up went the stars and stripes to his main peak. Well, tarnation Moses. Well, don't say, Doyle, you're dead, I said I. Maybe they're like the devil, not half so bad as they're painted. But anyhow, we'll hope for the best and prepare for the worst. The hooker ahoy, says he. And hi to yourself, sir, said I. Where are you from, said he. St. Pierre, said I, with a load of salt, thinking I might out with him. But him being up to all sorts of tricks, he knew 'twas a pack of lies. Surrender, said he. To who, said I. To the Republic of the United States, said he. And I'll be damned if I do, says I. And you'll be damned if you don't, says he. And jumping into my boat, he said, let 10 of my men jump in here with me. And it wasn't long before there was a bayonet pointed at each of our breasts. Now will you surrender, said he. To your honour I will, said I. And it wasn't long we was captured and bound hand and foot and placed in the cabin of that Yankee privateer. Well, they then hauled our old hooker up alongside. But they unloaded the pork, beef, molasses and flour. What's the puncheon, said he. Rum, said one of the crew. Oh, fetch it along this way, says he. And hush, hush, says Mark the Derby Doolan, and he hung his 2 danglers right over his head. I said, hush, hush now, Mark, me darling fella. You keep your hands behind your back now, in case someone comes, so later on you might get a chance to free us all. Just then the captain's head appeared the companionway. How you now, me landlubber, said he. Fine, sir, said I. And you'll be no great spell that way, says he. And that's as much as you knows about it, sir, said I. He said, we're going to scuttle your old hooker now. Well, thank you kindly, sir, said I. And it wasn't long before we heard him chopping, chopping, chopping. And that gurgling sound told us our old hooker was gone to the bottom. Why, we almost gave up to despair. But peeping on deck about a quarter of an hour later, we heard one hell of a ruckus up forward. And then there was bailed the rum into him. Yes, my son bailed it into him. And I said, hold on now, boys, for about an hour or so. So rushing on deck about 3/4 of an hour later, each man seized an iron blame pan, and it wasn't long before we had them Yankees bound hand and foot, and them in 2 full of liquor to show much fight. We placed some in her cabin, some more in her forecastle. And to their surprise, a man and his companion waved a loaded musket that we found among the ship's stores. Now, we never had much trouble with them Yankees going down along the shores. They were 2 securely bound. No one said a can out there off a petty harbour, so we never got to St. John's before the next day. But was there we gave our prize over to a British man of war. And the captain, been mighty pleased with us, gave us £450 to be shared among the ship's crew, and gave us a new hooker, and fitted us up with new provisions, and started us all off for home again. Because there, they had us all give up for lost. And sure what we nearly, when we was captured, bound hand and foot, placed in the cabin of that Yankee privateer. Thank you.
I'm sure Hubert would have said, good job. Just the right speed. Okay, we'll move right along here. And another one of my partners in rhyme, I suppose you'd call him, Mr. Dave Penny. He has performed in many Newfoundland and Labrador towns and festivals. The Mariposa Folk Festival in Ontario, parts of New England, and has established himself as a writer and performer of comedy songs such as Johnny Crone, which I haven't heard in a long time. Anyway, and A Town He Courted a Bayman's Daughter. Yes, sir. He has also penned historical ballads such as The Loggers' Strike, about the IWA strike in '59, and the 1892 Great Fire. His 3 solo albums, to his credit, all turned around, which was nominated for a 2017 Music NL Award for Celtic Traditional Artist of the Year, and a 2017 Canadian Folk Music Award for Traditional Singer of the Year, and Shipwagon Ahead, which was nominated for a Music NL Award for Celtic Traditional Artist of the Year. Jeez, Dave.
I know. I just realized that.
Don't do more any more big stuff. I'm losing my voice reading it up. Anyway, why don't you come on up here and show us what it's all about.
I didn't realize that was to be read out. I thought that was just
Maybe it wasn't.
it's a whole big thing. Anyway, I'm going to get right into it. October, I like to sort of get as much mileage out of this one as I can because it's a Halloween song. As far as I know, it's the only Halloween song that's going to be done at least tonight. And it's actually been commissioned because somebody asked me one time, a friend of mine was having a Halloween party, and they said, do you know any Halloween recitations or do you have any? Because she was going to get me to come over and do one. I said, I don't. But we're always sort of looking for ideas, you know what I mean? So anyway, that was one. That was sort of a good, a good idea. So, and zombies were all the thing that year. So this is called the Zombie Bullet. And of course, I could go on about Hubert, but I'll be pretty much saying the same things, over and over again. Other than that, it was a real privilege to be performing with him and knowing him when we were on the go. And he was so proud, Karen. I remembered we used to have a running joke about it, of how he would bring up your name like 8 times. Karen can do that. I know Karen, Yes, Hubert, we know Karen is. You just told us 5 minutes ago. I just remembered that, actually, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Zombie Bullet. There's sure to be a time when zombies take over this town. In fact, we're not far off already if you look around. It already happened once. A town was nearly taken over on the southwest coast of Newfoundland the last week of October. 50 years ago it was. I didn't just invent it. It's up in the archives and neatly documented. From the university in the city of St. John's, a crowd of zombies burst out of a building near Long Pond. They started heading west, but there was no mall in those days. With nothing on the go, they turned and went the other way. They only saw one fellow on the road at 3 a.m. And by the way he stumbled home, they thought that he was one of them. They were making good time, shuffling 8 or 9 abreast, and got downtown as the traffic started to congest. Squatting between the cars, they couldn't move ahead or back. So for a while, the zombies were all stopped dead in their tracks. They paid no mind to traffic lights or any other rules. After going through Kilbride, there were even more ghouls. Left everything in shambles, paid no mind to what they'd done. How can you pay mind anyway if you've got neither one? And when they got to Whitburn, well, that's when things got interesting. A train was pulled over and there were dozens of cars in a string, and all hands climbed aboard into the engine last. Somehow one squad up to the front and pressed down on the gas. And even if they found the handle brake, sure they couldn't pull it. And so all aboard the westbound CN Zombie Bullet. And when they got to Port of Bass, the train ran out of steam. Or coal or oil, whatever it is they use for gasoline. Port of Basket has the ferry dock and railway station, so they were used to booms of temporary population. But not a crowd like this, though, a different kind of sort. They stayed inside their houses while the zombies went to Alamort, 'cause Alamort was down the road, everything was best kind. Safe to say that zombies was the last thing on their mind. The name is French, it translates to the island of the dead, and so it all makes perfect sense, is where the zombies fled. They didn't end up finding their way into town at all. The zombies weren't smart enough to read maps after all. But how they got so far and then got lost, I have no clue. And I don't care either, as long as they stays where they're to.
Foolish as ever. I know Karen Ennis too.
We know, Dave,
And
we know.
and she's done one of mine too. All right, enough of that. Yeah. Okay, we're getting near the break here now, and we just got one more, I think, before the break, and that's Randy Crane, and you'll be glad to know I don't have anything written down to read about him. Or anybody else, so that's that. Randy is our treasurer at St. John's Storytime, so, you know, when Randy wants to hand you out a check, you line up and hold your hand out like that. And he does, right? That's pretty nice. Uh-oh,
No, we don't.
I'm getting told off back there. What's up?
He don't hand out your city check.
No, is that right? Okay.
3 years.
Is this heckling? Not bad. I know who you were, Arlene. Anyway, we'll finish up the first half here now with Randy Crane, and he's going to do one of yours. So come on up there, Randy, where you are.
I've never been introduced to my accounting expertise before, but thank you very much. And I am delighted and excited to be performing an original Hubert Fury piece, especially in front of Eleanor and his family and all his friends. And I'm especially delighted to be doing this particular piece. I only heard Hubert do it once. This was down at the Song Circle, down at the Crow's Nest Officers Club. And I was sitting there, I didn't know Hubert, and this gentleman got up and he hit me right between the eyes with a recitation, because he could have been doing it for only me, because it was exactly the experience I had when I was a young man. My sister Patricia was 17 or 18 years older than me, married down in the States. She would send me a book every month. I don't know if she had me in a book club, but every month I would get a Hardy Boy book, or a Reader's Digest condensed version of the classics. One of the classics, the Robinson Crusoe, or cities. I can't even remember the names of them now. So long ago, and I devoured them. I couldn't wait to get them, and it fostered my love of reading and writing and performing, I guess. Hubert Fury's original piece, One Small Book. Books to read when I was in school, there was a woeful lack, except for the few you carried in a denim bag upon your back. There were no fancy libraries then, with books stacked shelf to shelf, and lots of times you wouldn't have the money to buy a book yourself. Now the teachers did their best, teaching a dozen grades. I tried it once, and I can tell you, sir, they deserve their accolades. And even when they tried their best, a book was hard to find. There was lots to do for the body back then, but precious little for the mind. Precious little for the mind. But in this tale of dark and woe, there is a ray of light. It's all about a book I got, a book that came one night. It was down among some well-packed clothes beneath a pair of skates. A book that came from far away in a barrel from the States. For in the place where I grew up, lots of people had gone away to climb the steel in Boston and New York and find a better way. And when their life improved, when prosperity they'd find, they'd send back barrels of clothes and things to us who stayed behind. It was in one such barrel I found a book from a cousin just as keen for reading as I was, a boy I'd never seen. They'd buy him lots of books to read, and when he read them through, he'd ship them off to Harbour, Maine, so I could read them too. You may depend, I was the happiest boy you met. A brand new book, all mine to keep. You might say, sir, I was set. I sneaked away to a quiet place away from the kitchen noise, to that mysterious house upon the cliff and those sleuths, the Hardy boys. Many a happy an hour I spent with Frank and Joe and Chet, and if it wasn't for the fact that life goes on, I think I'd be there yet. Ah, the mystery, the excitement at every chapter that I read, the dreams I had of solving crimes each night I went to bed. I must have read that book 1,000 times, deaf to the world outside. Then I took my precious book to school to show it off with pride. You should have seen them gather around begging for a look. I was the star of the classroom show with my brand new mystery book. At recess, the teacher read the book to faces wrapped in awe. There wasn't a stir or a movement, sir, the quietest class you ever saw. When the bell would ring, it was back to work. Many a face would scowl perplexed. They'd have to wait another day to see what happened next. Pretty soon that book was read by every girl and boy. Can you imagine that one small book could give us so much joy? We searched for Bayport on the map. To us, this fiction stuff was new, so convinced were we that the mystery tales of the Hardy boys were true. The teacher was amazed at our love for Frank and Joe and Chet. She had a concert and saved some money and bought the entire set. And when the girls complained about being left out, well, they were readers too. She sent away a check for, you guessed it, Nancy. Now, with all those books passed hand to hand, the class was so quiet that year. The turning of pages, the sighs of delight, the only sound you'd hear. Even the boys down in the back, who made most of the noise, were quiet as mice around a cat when reading the Hardy boys. Well, they all grew up and went away, I guess, to start their life for real. The girls as secretaries on the base, the boys to climb the steel. We met and talked of books, how the school year really flew, how the love of books and reading began with the Hardy boys and Nancy Drew. I guess my cousin will never get thanks for the marvelous things he's done, the reading he brought into our lives, the excitement, the downright fun. No, he'll never get thanks enough for that marvelous step he took. He got us reading day and night by sending me one small book. Godspeed, Hubert. Thank you very much.
One of my favorites that Hubert did. We're going to take a little break now. Before we do, I thought I'd just mention that tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here, Dale Jarvis is going to be here. Him and There, thank you, Karen. They're going to be demonstrating a form of Japanese storytelling, so I'm pretty curious about that. I'm going to be here. And then at 9 o'clock, we're all going to adjourn to the ship because we're going to have Jim Payne and Michelle Clemens and the Moriarty brothers, Dave and Abe. So that's going to be a wicked evening for sure. And you might want to take a look at the rest of the schedule because Thursday, there's an Indigenous storytelling session. And I was listening to Amelia doing her land acknowledgement, and I was just up in the Torngat Mountains the other day for 5 days with a group of Indigenous people from Maine and Hopedale and Howick, and a couple of other places actually. And you should see how they light up when they're up in the Torngat. It's amazing. And Wayne Broomfield is a late addition to the Thursday storytelling session. And he was telling us the story of a rescue they had to put on for a bunch of National Geographic tourists, you might say, who went off into the Torngats with no local guides or anything. Absolutely hair-raising, figuratively and literally. There's polar bears. Now, I don't know if he's going to tell that story. I kind of hope he does. Amazing. But anyway, he will have some amazing stuff to tell you. So will Alex Saunders, Joe Gowdy, and herself, Amelia. So take that in and look at the rest of the schedule. It's quite a festival this year, for sure. All right, we'll get a few nibbles and drinks and whatnot, and we'll reconvene in about 15 minutes. All right, we're gonna fire things up again here shortly. And oh yeah, I'm first. Okay, I'm just waiting for everybody to come in from outside there, I suppose. Maybe I'll just. Can't be too grand not do stuff like that, right? Okay, yeah. Now, Teresa, where are you? You there? Yeah, Teresa?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, you know, if you were gone somewhere, this would be a good time. This little story I wrote not too long ago. I had a very brief career as a musician, about 2 weeks. And my instrument was the boran, or you know, however you pronounce it. I've given it up entirely. I now play the air boran. It doesn't take quite as much skill. Yeah, I thought I'd have a try at it. My wife, Kimmy, she bought me a boran, and she bought me a 1-hour lesson with Fergus O'Byrne. So, geez. So Fergus comes over to the house and he says, well, play. He said, play. So I just put it up and started doing this. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, he said, yes, yeah, no problem. Just practice. Now, Dave. And he gave me a very serious look. He said, there is a certain protocol and etiquette to be observed when you're playing the boran. You are somewhere near the lower end of the musician instrument scale. I mean, the fiddles and the guitars and the bouzouki and I don't know where the accordion comes in, I don't dare say. But the accordion's up there all ahead of the boran apparently, other than the spoons. So that reminds me of a story. I can tell you this anyway. Jim Payne was telling me once him and Fergus were playing a big convention at somewhere around here. There's going to be 1,000 people there, and they were hired on. And not too long before they started, the woman who was running the thing came up and said to them, "Guess what?" And they looked at each other and said, "What?" She said, "I have taped a set of spoons underneath the table at every place setting. And when you guys start playing, everybody can grab their spoons and play along with you." Well, Jim described it some funny time. I looked at Fergus, and Fergus looked at me. And anyway, they managed to talk her out of it, I guess. Can you imagine what that would have been like? Anyway, that's not what I was going to tell you about. But sure enough, yeah, there's a story from Ireland about a boran player, or perhaps it was a spoons player, who was murdered with a bicycle. Anybody know that story? You know
Spoons murder,
yeah. Yeah, it's a song, right?
Recitation.
I should have learned it out. Yeah, he was playing when he shouldn't have been playing. He breached the protocol, right? And he was murdered with a bicycle. Pretty bad. Anyway, I'm going to tell you that story now. I'm still here, so it didn't go too badly. And I call this the rhythm of the sheep. Well, I've been telling stories now this last 10 years and more. Super Nans and Christmas tours and 12 Elaines galore. To put a smile on a face is always pretty nice. Give all the laughs that you can give. Yes, sir, that's my advice. But lately, I've been thinking that I'm not the real thing and that telling recitations kind of makes me second string. The musicians are the first string, and I figured out one day I should get an instrument and even learn to play. Now, the boran can be played, they say, by any moron, see. So I figured sort of logically that could apply to me. And so I thought to play that drum would make me pretty cool. I soon found out that I was an exception to the rule. The missus bought a drum for me, and in a little bit I figured out which side of it I was supposed to hit. I found it kind of complex though, and I felt a little stunned. The missus hired Ferguson to show me how it's done. Well, he had me up and running in about 10 minutes flat, and I was feeling pretty cocky, yes sir, grinning like the cat. Then Fergus looked me in the eye and said, "Now listen, Dave, you must observe a certain protocol before you play. You don't just jump right in and sit right down at any music session and start to bang away with those of musical profession. The fiddle and accordion, the guitar and the flute are far above your station, so don't be a big galoot. You're just above the spoon, see, in the music pecking order, and you must know your place and not infringe the music border. Or a fiddle player may glare at you and turn you to an icicle, or you could be assaulted with a tambourine or bicycle. And if the judge presiding is an accordionist, then he won't be sympathetic, your case will be dismissed. He'll scold the prosecutor, he'll lecture all the cops, he'll compensate the players. Yes, he'll pull out all his stops." Well, I was kind of shook up now, as you may understand, and as Fergus left the house, I thought, this isn't what I planned. But then I got my courage back and thought, no matter what the facts is, I'm going to play my drum, sir. All I got to do is practice. In order not to drive my wife, I practiced on the patio. I practiced every day for hours, watched every YouTube video. I played along with every song that came up on the radio. And by and by, I figured I was quite the Boron Gladio. I strapped my tongue. Eventually, I figured I was through with Boron lessons, and I was surely good enough for any St. John's session. My hard work and my practicing would now come to fruition, because I was now the real thing, sir. I was a musician. I strapped my Boron to my back, figured that looked cool. Walked down to the embassy, sat down on a stool, bought a pint of Guinness, thought that was the coolest label, and wandered nonchalantly to the session players' table. Billy was presiding with Rob, Michelle, and Mike, and I was quite relieved to see that neither had a bike. In walked Aaron Collis with his accordion. "How are you, Dave?" said he. "I didn't know you played the drum." "Well, you don't know what that crowd is like. They're all the finest kind." "Dave, old man," said Bill, "you can cut it any time." I put my Boron on my knee, got ready for the rocker, and started into knocking with that little chummy knocker. Well, I was doing good at first with my rat-a-tat-tat-tat. So they went from music arithmetic to music algebra. Rob exchanged a worried look with Michelle on the flute. Oh, thought I, what did Fergus say about a big galoot? I was sweating hard by now, barely holding it together. The others played relaxedly and talked about the weather. And then they changed the beat again, and I felt a sense of doom. My chummy locker left my hand and sailed across the room. Pauline was seated at the bar. He saw my little fear. He smiled as my chummy knocker splashed out in his beer. The room got deathly quiet. As I sat there, I was froze. All hands looked away. Out of sympathy, I suppose. Billy looked across at me with Rob, Michelle, and Mike. Neither one jumped up to go and try and find the bike. Then Rob spoke up and saved me from complete humiliation. "Dave, old man," said he, "I'd love to hear a recitation." And so I think perhaps I'll stick to telling stories. Leave the music to the music crowd. I don't know how to play. I'll hang my Boron on the wall. The learning curve's too steep. And I think perhaps I only got the rhythm of the sheep. Don't hate me. All right. We'll carry on here now. And once again, we're going to bring up my good friend Dave. You want me to read all that again?
No.
launch right into one about actually the boys might get this too. Like people always come up with these ideas, or like, oh, you know, you should do a song about that or a recitation about that. This is one case where that actually comes. It actually paid off. A friend of mine was into Goobies, Goobies Irving, of course. And oh, by the way, is there anybody here from Goobies? Is anybody from Goobies? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, so she was into Goobies. She was buying a tub of worms, and the missus at the counter told her that someone was after going around stealing worms out of the containers. And she said, I gotta tell Dave this. So anyway, she told me about it. Goobies worm thief. The fishing season opened up, and Eddie, Abraham, and Jean, they went out to mine for worms, which was their end of June routine. In the dark with great big flashlights for the big ones on the land, with some little butter tubs till early morning's break of dawn. Then Eddie said, I'll pick them up in Goobies. Later that day, Eddie took his own pickup truck to the bay. The other two guys went together. Eddie said they knew the way. But then when they got out so far, Abraham said kind of firm, we should pull in there now, boys, and get a couple of tubs of worms in case Ed forgets to stop in Goobies. They picked up a tub of butter and a jar of local jam, a loaf of sliced up baker's bread, some butter, and some flakes of ham. And in the coolers in the back, just like the ones you find at home near the juice, some little white containers made of styrofoam from Andy's Worm Farm, 20 Main Road, Goobies. When they got up to the counter, the cashier looked all upset. She was looking at their purchase with her eyebrows in a knot. She leaned in close and tipped her head up quick to say, come here. They do check into the tub. She whispered into Eugene's ear. He says we got a worm thief here in Goobies. Eugene laughed out with a spade and told her she exaggerates. He popped the lid and said, sure, Lord, this thing, he said, is full of baits. Oh, perhaps she said, but several people here were cheated and are hurt. Got into the pond and paid $6.50 for a tub of dirt. So the bounty's got a path bit in the Goobies. Curious, they went to Andy's just to have a look around. And when they got in closer, they were both surprised at what they found. What's in there, said Abraham, tucked in there between them sheds. That truck, he said, it looks familiar. Now the boy, I'm sure that's Ed's. They wondered what was Eddie at in Goobies. Well, then a man came from the house, looking sharp, went to the pan of Eddie's truck and lifted up an orange tart, and tubs of worms were hidden there. Andy's Worm Farm stamped in red. They opened the containers, then they flicked the worms back into bed. Eddie was no stranger here in Goobies. So Andy sold his worms, it seems, and then he went off and got Ed to steal the product back for him to cut down on his overhead. Eventually, the word was spread from St. John's to St. John's within. People went to Andy once, but no one goes to him again. Andy only shagged himself in Goobies. Boys were going to tell Ed that they knew, but then they said, what odds? And Andy gave up on the worm farm after. Now he's at the sides. No one needs worms anyway. Sure, codfish will eat whatever's aboard, from bits of pork to foam air plugs to old freight ends of bungee cord, picked up like the highway up by Goobies. Irving was in trouble too without that worm bait revenue. If the price of gas goes down, they'll have to sell the moose statue. Even the restaurants struggled there with people eating healthily. They had to change the fish and chips and make the gravy gluten-free. Things will never be the same again in Goobies. Well, that's what I heard anyway, from a friend who said she heard it from another person there, but it turns out that every word of it is lies. There is no worm farm or a sod farm, nothing even handy. It was made up, sure I don't think there even was an Andy. Don't believe a word you hear in Goobies.
Where they come from St. Pierre's, where you have rum and cigarettes and worms. Maybe not. Maybe not. Next we're going to have Harry again. Come on up here, Harry. I got nothing to read about this.
I'm going to do now, everybody knows what a sing-along is, right? Well, I'm going to do a recite-along. I'm not going to tell you right away. You'll get the feeling after a little while, and I want you to come back to me when you're good and ready, and you'll get it when you get there. Do anybody know anybody old and crooked?
Yes, sir.
I suppose, yeah. I do is my great Uncle John, Sour's Coin. Sour's Coin. Now, I'm going to do this recitation, but before I do, is there anybody here from away? Do I mean from that? Oh, there's got one. Yes, yeah, 3 or 4. All right, this is for you. Sometimes when you do Newfoundland pieces, you got to kind of explain a few things because there's things that people only get in Newfoundland. So I'll tell you a mug up. A mug up is just basically a lunch at night time. Okay? The Health Science in Sinclair's are both 2 local hospitals, and the piles are hemorrhoids. So with that, I give you Don't Be Tired. Everyone knows one another, there's no doubt. Someone all negative, yes, down in the mouth. I know him quite well, he's my great Uncle John, but it's not for his wit or his charm I'm so fond. But crooked as sin, that's the way to describe him. Opinions he got, he don't care if you like him. Yes, he's that friggin' crooked, I'll tell you right now, that if he died tomorrow, he'd be screwed in the ground. Well, I visited one day, he was watching TV, Leafs and Hedges, he loves his hockey. Well, how's the game, Uncle John? I said with a smile, and I stopped and waited to hear his reply. Hockey, don't be talking. You're good. They should learn how to skate, that red should be shot, and I'm sure that my Leafs will make the playoffs. And I can't see the puck unless I'm wearing my glasses. And the TV's too small. Where's my bread and molasses? Well, he bawled for 5 minutes about hockey and stuff till Aunt Sue's from the kitchen brought out his mug up. Well, I guess you're all right now with your tea and your lunch. I said to my uncle, he started to grunt. Grub, don't be talking. My son Grub around here's not fit to eat. Sure, boiler soup might have there a bit of meat. And pea soup was worse because most times it's salty and the broth's almost clear, the dough balls are soggy. And Aunt Sue bakes them cakes like the one in the song, that Trinity cake, that paralyze your jaw. That's a job to get Grub this fit around here. Sure, the health science would be better than probably St. Clair's. Well, just then on the radio came tomorrow's forecast. Should be half cold with a touch overcast. Nice day tomorrow, Uncle John, you agree? Well, he stood up and he looked out the window to see. Weather, don't be talking. Sure, one day it has rain, and the next day the snow and frost on the ground, me tatties can't grow. And the crowd on the radio, sure, they're always wrong. Sure, they couldn't even forecast, was actually by fog. Still, weather is miserable, it's never no good. Sure, I can hardly get out and play with me wood. And I can't check me slips because it's wet and it's cold. And I can't hunt me moose because he tells me I'm old. So I'll stay in the house now till the weather comes fine, and I suppose I'll get out again before I dies. Well, sure you will, Uncle John. You looks the best kind. How you feel these days? You looks pretty spry. How am I feeling? Don't be talking. The gout is right bad, and I got corns on my feet. And I can't say the last time I had a good sleep. And the piles is right bad, not to mention arthritis. And I'm sure I got TB or chronic bronchitis. And my hearing is no good, no more is my sight. My pants are all shrinking. I think I might need to die. Well, he continued on with more aches and more pains and ailments that it said no men to their graves. Well, it's coming on dark, I said, Uncle John, but I'll be back again before long. Well, thanks for coming, he said, to see Aunt Susan and me. I suppose I'm not too bad for 103. Well, I guess at his age is his right to complain. And I really can't wait to go see him again. Yes, my great Uncle John, he's a very fine fellow. And if anyone asks, I'll say, let me tell you, great Uncle John. Don't be tired. Thank you kindly.
Oh, good. Thank you, Harry. We're going to change things a little bit now, just for tonight. Stage to stage is going to be a foursome again with a Fury. So I'm looking forward to this. Your son David's going to come up and do one for us, and great to have you.
Got anything on your paper for me? Or? I was really nervous he wouldn't have anything to say about me, but then he ignored Randy entirely, so I feel fine. Have you ever been to one of those hockey games where the professionals play for a couple of periods and you're watching this great hockey, and then during the intermission they bring out a little kid and Everybody cheers for him anyway. That's the sort of vibe I'm going for here. So this is one of the recitations that Dad did very early on when he didn't think anybody wanted to hear it. So he practiced it a lot with us at home. It's still one of my absolute favorites. So when Mom asked me if I would do one of these, and I didn't want to, but my mother gets whatever she wants. Yeah, so I said, well, I will if I can do this one. So this is the one that I have chosen to do. It is based on loose historical fact, as far as I know. Mother, is it correct? Yes, okay. So this one is called Raisin Bread. My wife flopped in the easy chair. I'm getting bored, she said. I think I'll get myself in gear and make some raisin bread. But you don't make that kind of bread, I answered with a frown. Whenever you want raisin bread, I bring it back from town. Her voice went cold, the acid tone, like when you know you're dead. I suppose you think just because I teach, I can't make raisin bread? I had to cringe because then I knew that I had lost the fight. But I had to try just one more time to make her see the light. Because when my wife tries something new, there's that awful price to pay. Like the time she started pottery and never brought home clay. Another time with the berry cake with berries from the ridge, when the cake was baked and cut and served. Berries in the fridge. But it's not Christmas, I replied. It's still the month of June. Raisin bread is a Christmas treat. You'll make it much too soon. Good heavens, no. 'Twill taste as good, whether Christmas or today. All right, I said, go make your bread. That's all I had to say. So out she went to the pantry shelf to get the yeast and flour. Then came back to tell me she had to wait an hour. It has to rise and fluff right up. It says so in this book. If you can read, then you can cook. And she gave me that dreadful look. She had her nap and we both went out, because I had to see myself. That's when I spied from the pantry door the raisins on the shelf. Oh, the bread had riz, such fluffy loaves, round and smooth and white. But no matter how I looked and peered, not a raisin was in sight. Now I picked that time with my high IQ, in spite of all I'd said, to spread my face in a great big grin and point to the smooth white bread. There's ne'er a raisin, I said with glee. You never do things right. Sir, when she turned to look at me, that's when I got the fright. Now my wife's a proper little dear, but don't you make her boil. 'Cause strong, my son, when her temper's up, she'd make a cobra coil. She grabbed the box from the pantry shelf, took the raisins one by one, and thrust them with plain savagery into each protruding bun. Her hope was that, though the bread was riz, there still was time to act, and put them in last as first. 'Twas just timing that it lacked. She poked and pushed with all her might, saying things I dare not speak, while the cat and I just stood and stared, afraid to make a squeak. Now the only thing that I can say is that the dough was like a spring. Just as she'd let the pressure off, each raisin would go zing. Yes, the buns of bread were catapults, shooting bullets like a gun. I stood transfixed and watched them fly as they shot past one by one. One headed straight for the window pane, right through the window blind. I was frightened to death to turn and run for fear of my behind. Another bounced off my shoulder blade and nearly made me fall. It caromed off the laundry tub and hit the other wall. The mirror dropped and smashed to bits, and glass was flying around. I thought back to my days in war and promptly hit the ground. I put my hands up to my head in terror on the mat when a raisin whizzed just past my ear and damn near shot the cat. The laundry that was hung to dry was torn and rent with holes. The socks, so neatly pinned in pairs, were left with holy souls. The pipes were hit and water spewed and jars were smashed to bits as raisins flew from the punctured buns like a Gatling with the spits. They heard the racket from miles around and rushed from north and south. I had to wait outside the house till the raisin pack ran out. But end it did, for my wife was spent, and the raisins were all shot. Not in the bread, but in the walls. Yes, that's the walls where they got. The carpenter came and fixed the walls. The plumber fixed the pipes. We patched the holes in our socks and drawers, so we have no further gripes. We got the doctor for my wife. She almost lost an eye. She sworn off raisin bread for good. She barely bakes a pie. The book in which she took such pride, she flung out o'er the pier. And as for the words like raisin bread, they're never mentioned here. Not that my wife has lost her charm. Why, just the other day, she was sitting with that dreamy look, her thoughts so far away. My nerves got taut, for I could sense she was up to another gig. And I was right, because up she said, I think I'll raise a pig.
Looking out the mess. Okay, we're winding down here now, and at this point, I'm going to ask Karen to come up and do another one of Hubert's.
Thank you. It was so good. Yeah, you have a career. That's so good. Great delivery. I'm going to get my sisters to come up because this.
You can't do it without us.
I can't do it. Teresa, you got your boomerang?
I left it.
Oh, you left it?
I felt like parked outside.
Oh, did you? So we do out from St. Leonard's, and Maureen also has written a beautiful song, which we're going to do. It's called The Fortunate Ones, but these talk about resettlement and people being forced to have to leave. And Hubert actually came over to the house one day with all these recitations, and he stopped on this one. It's called Thoughts on Resettlement. And he said, you know, this would be a beautiful introduction to one of your songs on resettlement. And so I thought, yes, absolutely. And that was the thing with Hubert. He could make you laugh, as you just heard, but he could also touch your heart and, you know, make you tear up. Just he just had such a beautiful way with his words. So this is an example of that. And when I'm done, we'll go into a song that Maureen wrote called Fortunate Ones. As you know, with the collapse of the fishery and the moratorium, so many little communities around Newfoundland that were dependent on the fishery, people living there had no choice but to have to move away to find work. And so now they're living away and thinking it's only going to be for a few years, but you realize 10, 20 years have gone by and you're still living away. You've got your family raised. It's not so easy to come home. Now you have to plan vacation time to go home to visit the fortunate ones, the ones who get to live here all year round, except in the winter. That's when you want to, you just want to go somewhere. But seriously, we are so lucky that we get to live here year round, and so that's what the song is about. So we'll start it off, and I don't know if you want to.
We're just gonna wait.
You're gonna wait here. You wait there.
Spotlight.
Give me the spotlight. You never let me have the spotlight. From where I stand, I slowly watch the houses disappear, erasing from my memory all the joys of yesteryear. But the world still turns, and so I bid my dreams goodbye. I stare ahead, and I feel the tears in my eyes. The towering cliffs lay silent in the distance as I gaze, and they hold my thoughts and memories of warmer, softer days, of people busy making hay and turning fish to dry, and of children gathered on the beach to watch the boats go by. A boat reluctant cleaves the sand, as if it shares with me the feelings that are in my heart. It knows my misery. I bow my head to hear the restless ocean crash and heave, and I try to understand the reasons why we had to leave. They told us that we couldn't stay, that the future bids us on, but we would find our hopes and dreams some rich place further on. But they didn't tell us how to leave, or how we were to cope, or how we were to live our lives when we had lost all hope. With the promise of money and the chosen words they used, they made it sound so real. But no money could ever pay us for the way that it made us feel. Gone were the days when you'd know the names of everyone you'd meet, We peer shyly now at the faces of the strangers in the streets. The rays of sunlight come to rest upon a little hill, where those who cannot join us will be remaining still. We leave them with their sorrows and the happiness they knew. You'd sometimes think they knew no joy in the homes in which they grew. Loneliness often held sway, and they felt the season's sting, but they knew joy and happiness, and they could dance and sing. And in those houses that now stand abandoned to decay, the sounds of life were just as rich as any of today. And so I'll turn my head and look to that which lies ahead, a future that has promised much, but holds its share of dread. I'll live my life the way I must, but I'll never understand the way things had to happen in the outports of Newfoundland.
How many years have gone by since they said, haul up your boats, boys, the fisheries day? It seems like a lifetime ago since I left the only direction of west. We left it all in the government's hands, so we pay the price on the rigs and the sands. There's only so long you can protest and plead. You got a family to feed. Home was a place by the ocean, a home made of life past 2 daughters and sons. Now home is the place we vacation, so we can go visit the fortunate ones. I decided to go for a year, maybe 2. It's not like I had anything left to lose. But 20 years later, my kids called us home, the only one they've ever known. There are days when I just miss the smell of the taste of the salt on the Atlantic breeze, and I still see my parents and the tears in their eyes when I had to say my was a place by the ocean, a long way of life past 2 daughters and sons. Now home is the place we vacation, so we can go visit the fortunate ones. Remember the day when the days were so clear, it's always too hot or too cold around here. And maybe I'll get back at some point this year. Now there's always so much to consider. At least there was work up here waiting for me. And I met some friends, I've got a great family. And I know someday when my work here is done, I'll be a fortunate one. Yes, I will. Home was a place by the ocean, a long way of life past 2 daughters and sons. Now home is the place we vacation, so we can go visit the fortunate ones. Home was a place by the ocean, a long way of life past 2 daughters and sons. Now home is the place we vacation, so we can go visit the fortunate
they just knocked me. I had a puddle on the floor. That's one of, I was gone 20 years myself, and I became a fortunate one. Got to come back. Here we are. It's been quite an evening. Geez, I just imagine if you were listening to that, you would have loved it. So what can I say? Thanks for coming, everybody, and hope you enjoy the rest of the festival. Thanks to the Ennis sisters for coming and really completing this evening. And just to say, stay home. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you to all of you who performed tonight. It was just a beautiful night, and I hope Eleanor and your family enjoyed it, because, you know, it was just a way for us to honor Hubert's legacy of storytelling. And as Dave said, at a time when, you know, a lot of people weren't doing Newfoundland recitations anymore, but Hubert was, and he brought his own beautiful body of work to us who are now recitationists, we call ourselves. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our online audience. Thank you to everybody in the room. So please continue to follow our events. We're on all the social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook. We do have a sign-up sheet outside if anybody wants to receive our ongoing kind of reminders of our events. And thank you to the bodies that fund our work, because without those bodies that fund our work, we would not be able to do all these wonderful things we do. So Arts NL, the Canada Council for the Arts, Building Communities Through Arts and Culture, which is a federal program. It's a federal heritage program. And the government of Newfoundland and Labrador and the city of St. John's also sponsors this particular festival. So thank you to all those funding bodies, because without the money, you can't do the work to pay the artists and pay the professionals who help you do all that you do. Gracie, thank you for live streaming us tonight. John Clark, the absolute best sound man in the world, is at the back of the room and doing all that he does to make everybody sound good. So thank you, everybody. It's such a beautiful, beautiful night. And there's a hand up. Of course, it's Christine Henneberry.
Karen, at the beginning, you thanked everybody, but nobody thanked you.
That's
So
right.
thank you for your volunteer work.
Thank you for that. Christine is just thanking me for my work, but it's a joy for me. It truly is. It's work that I love to do, and I draw such energy and inspiration from it. It's a labor of love. So thank you for that, Christine. I appreciate your kind words. Safe home, as Dave said, and hope to see you again soon. All right. Good night, everybody in the audience.